don't tell anybody, but right here on Big Blend Radio, we've had some Champagne Sundays emergencies. So, like, we needed to run out and get some champagne or Prosecco. We like to have Prosecco, too. And it's right before the show airs, especially as we travel the country. And then we realized, we need to get that cold. What do we do? And, things will pop before you think. And we need to talk about temperature of champagne, wine, and serving it and storing it. And so it's time for Wine 101 with Hilarie Larson. Again, she's a sommelier and a wine educator, the co-owner of Northwinds-Wine-Consulting, and one of our Big Blend Radio experts and food, wine, and travel writer contributors. If you go to blendradioandtv.com, you'll see her in our expert department, and you'll be able to see her articles and interviews there. But also go to her website, northwinds-wine-consulting.com. She works with wineries and, also restaurants and everybody in the hospitality industry that works with wine. And so if you even pour a glass of wine in your business, call her. So it's 1-800-HILARIE. I'm kidding. That's not her phone number. But anyway, Hilarie, welcome back. And what do we do when we have these Champagne Sundays emergencies? Because then I run and I go, do I put it in the freezer? And that doesn't work. And then things do pop. Like they do. Crazy.
Yes, the freezer can be the enemy, especially if you forget that you put something in there.
Oh, it's hard. Like on the road, when we were traveling on the road, and then, okay, this is the true emergency. It's a Sunday, and you go to get champagne or Prosecco sometimes, whatever we can do. And sorry, ma'am, you're in the dry county on a Sunday. Now that's a true emergency, but and we've been there.
And that one I can't help you with.
Yeah, but we have friends in places, even though you didn't know it when you were there. People come out and they help you, and at that point it doesn't matter what they're giving you. It can be whatever. It's like, okay, there's a bubble in it, we're going for it, and if it's still warm, we're doing it, because tradition, by golly, is tradition. But yeah, how many times have we had dinner parties and suddenly forgot to take? You may have bought wine or something, and then you didn't cool it. You didn't. What do we do at that point? Because
I know
I think
that's happened to all of us. But actually, you can chill a bottle of wine down pretty quickly. The fastest way is with ice water, not just ice, but ice water. So if you get yourself, some of us have beautiful wine coolers made specifically for this, but hey, just a bucket would do. Fill it with some ice, put some water in there so you have a nice soup of ice and water. Throw in a pinch of regular table salt and submerge your bottles in that. And after about, depending on what wine it is and how cold you want to get it, it should be at a nice drinking temperature in, say, 15 minutes.
Oh, so that's what I'm going to do in the next. And on the road, we can do that. You can get
ice. Definitely.
Okay,
ice and water. Just make sure that you take some. If you're on the road, what I find is really great, and I buy mine in France, but I'm sure you can find them online here. They're made of like a soft acrylic-y plastic, and they look like a little bag, a tall, thin bag with little handles on the top, and they fold flat. And then you can take that with you when you're traveling, take it down to the ice machine, put your ice in, get it back to the room, and put your water in, and stand your bottle up in it, and you're good to go.
Right on. We like this. I want one of those.
I know, they're wonderful.
So, okay, this is interesting because I'm going back to our champagne hikes. Nancy and I are into this. Hummingbirds like it. There's something about the champagne. And it's different. If you take white wine or red wine, it's different. Champagne, for some reason, hummingbirds circle, and butterflies.
Really? That's interesting.
I don't know if it's the yeast thing, because I don't know about the yeast differences between them all, but it seems to me like there's a difference. But anyway, when we travel, half the time we don't do the big cooler with the ice and all that stuff, but now I'm thinking that would work better. We have like one of those cooler bags, and you put your little blue ice blocks in. And half the time I wrap the bottles with these blue ice things, those little freezer things.
Yeah.
With, I take like a dishcloth and I'll wrap it around. But now I'm thinking that I should just go and get ice and water and put it in the cooler and take that instead. I just never thought that way.
Yeah, that's the quickest way to chill your wine down. I mean, you can put it in the freezer, but if you do, it actually takes a little bit longer than the ice water method, and you do risk, especially if you got a party going on or something and you get busy and you're distracted and you forget that your wine is in there, and the next thing you know, you've got a winesicle coming out of the top of the bottle. And once it's frozen, the wine's pretty well gone. That's happened to my beer before, and then things can happen. I'm just saying. Because, I like things with bubbles. Beer and champagne go well. But anyway, so let's talk about temperatures of wine. So some of us have wine coolers, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that. Do you have a wine cooler, per kind of wine, or do you have a specific temperature that red, white, and champagne are set at, if you drink all of it, like us? So if you have a wine fridge, you can get a lot of models that have usually 2 different zones in them. So you can have 2 different temperature settings. So, if you're going to just be cellaring your wine and keeping it in a perfect condition and perfect scenario so that you can enjoy it a year or so down the road, you can just take your wine fridge and set it around between 50 and 56. And that'll be just great. That'll keep it just like it was in some beautiful, dark, damp Parisian wine cellar. If you're going to be drinking your wines and you're just keeping them in there, but you pull them out at a regular basis, then you probably want to have a lot of the times people take the top part of their wine fridge and set it to around 40, 45 degrees, and then they'll keep their whites and their sparkling wines and sometimes the rosés in that part, and then keep the bottom half a little warmer, say around that 55 to 58 degrees, and keep the red wines in that bottom section.
Okay.
And then if you pull your wine out and you want it a little cooler, you can always put it in the fridge or in that ice bucket. And if your reds come out and they're just a little bit warm, you can always just, run them under a warm tap for a few minutes or submerge them in some warm water for a few minutes.
Okay, so you at this point, if you do not put ice cubes in your wine, you keep the wine bottle in the ice, but you do not put the ice cube in the wine. Am I right with that?
No, I'm not an advocate of putting ice cubes in wine, although I have to say I've even seen people in France do that. The wine capital of the world, right? And I've seen lots of people do it. I don't like it because ice melts and it's going to dilute my wine, and I don't want that.
And what if it's bad water? What if the ice is bad? Because I'm starting to think that our wine is probably better quality than our water these days.
I think so. Well, that's why the Romans and the Greeks drank so much wine, was because the water wasn't really suitable for consumption. So they drank wine and sometimes beer instead.
Wow. No, we've put ice in our wine because if you're in a really hot area, and we have been in, crazy temperatures, and you are outside, and you're in a place like that, and you're like, that's it. You're at this point, I want my glass of wine. I'm going to put ice in it, and it's the way it is. It changes it. It's not the same. You're already not in a normal place. You know what I mean? So at that point, it really doesn't matter. If you're already doing that, you're already at that place. And it's like if you're outside and if it's patio wine or whatever, you're doing that. That's different. But you're not going to do it with your $100 bottle of wine. You're not going to put ice cubes in it, right?
Please.
Don't. I know. There's wine at the poolside. There's wine for all occasions, and treat it appropriately with that.
Exactly.
You really the ice bucket thing, because we have a nice, beautiful wine bucket, you would put champagne or wine in it. And I remember you being on a show talking about, people have wine buckets, and you were describing one. And it's a ceramic, and I'm like, we have one right there that we just unpacked, and we didn't even think it was
I remember that. Yes, that's
right
when we were talking about how do you keep your chilled bottle of wine cool when you're sitting on your patio enjoying the sunset. And those are those nice ceramic or acrylic double-walled chillers. They don't actually cool your wine down, but once you take a chilled bottle and put it inside, it'll keep it at a constant temperature.
So we don't put ice in there then? You just let it be?
No.
Or do you put the ice in there? Oh.
No, with those ceramic chillers and the double-walled acrylic, they're basically just to hold the wine at a certain temperature. So you've already got your bottle of white wine at the perfect temperature. You've taken it out of your refrigerator or out of the ice bucket, and you want to take it outside or somewhere that's warmer. You don't want it to warm up while you're, sipping away. So if you put it in one of these coolers, it'll just keep it at the right temperature so you can enjoy every sip.
Well, oopsie. Okay. I'm glad you told me that. So now, because you're on the show, and I know you and rosé, right?
Yeah.
So is rosé temperature the same as white wine or red wine?
Rosé usually falls sort of in the middle. Rosés, I like to have them, the lighter the wine or a sparkling wine, you want it colder. If a wine has, it's a white wine that has lots and lots of beautiful aromas, or a rosé, I like to have that just a little bit warmer, say around 45, 50 degrees, somewhere around there. So just a little bit warmer.
So
cool.
I have to ask, do you have one of those thermometers that people use to cook with? Do you go stick that in your wine glass to find out if it's the right temperature?
I have actually a wine thermometer.
Okay, so there's a wine thermometer. Okay, this is important news. Okay.
Yes, you can get little thermometers that are specifically for wine, and some of them have little hooks or little balancing things so you can rest it on the edge of your glass. I mean,
Seriously?
I don't use it very often, but we have done some experiments where we'll take a wine and we'll pour it in a couple of different, maybe 3 samples of it, and have them at different temperatures and see what the difference is in the way the wine tastes and smells. And it does make a difference.
Wow. It does. This is amazing stuff. I geek out on it. I think it's so cool because it's like, to me, what's so important is the winemaker goes through so much to grow the grapes, harvest the grapes, then make the wine. I mean, how long does it take to actually make a bottle of wine for it to be out and being poured? Like, how long are we looking at in general? Like,
well, it depends. White
different.
wines are the first wines to come out. So the grapes are harvested in September. So let's say last month they harvested Pinot Gris.
Mm-hmm.
It will probably be, most wines will probably put that in bottle in, say, February, March, somewhere around there. And then it'll be on the shelves anywhere from a couple of months to, from, say, 2 to 6 or 8 months later. Other wines, red wines, of course, they take longer because they go from once they're fermented, then they go in the barrel to rest and develop their flavors and mature. So those usually take, if the grapes are picked in September, they're probably in barrel for about a year, 2 years, or 3 years, and then they go into bottle. So white wine's much faster from, vineyard to your glass, and then red wines, and then champagnes are one of the longer ones too, because those are cellared for quite a long time.
Well, what's interesting about the red wine is you tend to drink that a little slower, and you tend to savor that a little bit more. Whereas the lighter wines, I was laughing about patio wines, but white wines too, depending, there's this savor at moment, but we were talking about this on the show before where the white wine comes out earlier and you start with champagne or sometimes end with champagne, depending what's going on. But there's that. It's interesting. It seems like it's the march of the white wines, and we take our time, and then finally we get to the red.
Well, and I think white wines, too, they're just, because most of them, not all, but a lot of white wine varieties are lighter and more refreshing, and they are served chilled. So they're a nice way to sort of begin your meal. They perk up your taste, and the acidity of the wine perks up your taste buds and gets your mouth salivating and ready to enjoy your meal. And they tend to go better with, say, starters like seafood or salads and sort of the lighter things that we begin a meal with. Whereas the red wines maybe come later because you've already got your palate warmed up and you've had some food, and then you have the bigger wines. They go with the bigger food, with your bigger proteins, your meats, and so on. And so,
but it seems
definitely,
to go with
there's a method to the madness.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's just interesting how it all kind of has its cycle and how the cycles unite in a way. That's what I'm saying. That's it's interesting. And then we haven't even talked about sheep yet and biodynamic wine. There's cycles there. There's environmental cycles that happen with wine. So very cool stuff. Thank you so much for giving us some tips on temperature. Again, everyone, you can go to northwinds-wine-consulting.com. And also, she is on Twitter. Hilarie's on Twitter, so you can go to northwinds-wine, northwinds-wine on Facebook and Instagram. And again, go to blendradioandtv.com, and you'll find Hilarie under the expert department, or just type in Hilarie on any of the search boxes of both our websites, also nationalparktraveling.com, because she also writes about wine destinations there as well. Thank you so much, Hilarie.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.